there's still that worry with most people that, am I missing something? Am I going to be okay? Because they don't take the time to sit down and do their projections and figure out, what am I on track for?
People bury their head in the sand because they I do have a 401k, I'm good.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not meeting the expectation of how much money they should be putting in, how much is enough for me to retire.
If I'm gone, got to have the mortgage paid off for the family so they can stay in the house. But they don't think of it in terms of... All right, welcome to the Focus on Life podcast. My name is Chris Curran. My partner here is Keith Scotti, and we're going to talk a little bit today about how to live a better life, essentially. So why don't you start, Keith, and just tell a brief story about who you are and why we're here.
Yeah, so my name is Keith, born and raised in New York. Kind of ventured across a lot of different scopes and different careers, and I kind of landed on a career that really speaks volumes when it comes to preparation and readiness and, retirement planning in general. A lot of times people really just don't understand or what they should be doing, and they're so worrisome about how to prepare for this stuff, and they don't focus on what's right in front of them, and it's their family, it's their loved ones, it's doing the things you love and want to do in life. And I feel like people are missing out on those opportunities of life because they're so worrisome about the stuff that they essentially can't control, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it, right? What can we control and what can't we control? Just to be clear, so the Focus on Life title of the podcast really comes from a couple of things. It's kind of a double meaning. So both Keith and I are in the life insurance business, and we look at life insurance as a tool to live a better life in a lot of ways. Most people don't think of it that way because it's mostly about death for people, but we have found working with clients over the years that it really enhances life once you've taken care of these worries, the stuff that's in the back of your mind all the time. So I've been doing it a little bit longer than Keith. About 30 years now I've been in the business. I also grew up in New York, out on Long Island. We live in New Jersey now, both of us, and we have a business practice, a financial firm in Red Bank, New Jersey, which is where we're based. But we work nationally, and we help clients all over the country figure out the big questions in life and put their minds at ease so that they can live a more authentic life, a life that's not constantly racked with, as Keith said, worry. And that's a big theme for us, is how to eliminate worry in your life so you can live more authentically.
Yeah, and I think what we also want to get across on this episode is, what you can expect from this podcast and what you're going to see. And there's going to be all different types. There's no life that's identical. And I would assume unless you're a twin, but that's not even identical because you guys both live separate lives. But there's things like, eating right. There's things like traveling, so we're going to go through all different things, experiences that we've had. We work closely in our space with coaches that work with families that have special needs. We do college planning with parents. So, there's a lot of different things that is going to approach you year after year, every 10 years, every 15 years, purchase of a home. And I think it's wise to just get an education and see other perspectives and what other people experience. And then, either you can learn from those things or you can, get the assistance that you need from us or from the professionals that we're going to hopefully have on this podcast eventually.
Yeah. So like Keith said, we're going to tell some stories, give some real life examples of things. And I guess the way you just described it, it's almost kind of like a lifestyle podcast, but with a focus on finances. So again, because what we do in our work is really designed not just to have people have more money, protect their families financially. It's really to have them not have to worry about money so much. So that's why we'll talk about other things. What is the main problem out there in society that we're looking to solve? Right. So when it comes to finances, I've found, and I don't, you too, Keith, is that when we're working with people, there's a real high anxiety level and they don't want to do this type of planning. Most of our meetings start off reluctantly, right? Because people don't want to address issues like life insurance or retirement planning, special needs planning, or college, how are we going to pay for college? These are all things that we help people with, but it's done reluctantly. It's not like going to, you have plans for the weekend to go to watch the Jets or the Giants. That's fun. Yeah, when people say, hey, I'm going to go meet with my insurance guy or my finance guy, that's not that much fun usually.
It's funny you said that because I was literally thinking of like when you go to the doctor, like you have something wrong. Now, it's not a cold or a flu. It's like I have this issue or whatever, like something inside of me that I don't know what it is. And I'm afraid to tell the doctor about it because I don't want him to deliver the bad news. And I just don't, I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I talk about that. And it's the same situation, like, especially when I sit down with, individuals, and I talk about debt, and like they feel very uncomfortable because they don't want to tell me that they're in massive debt. They have a bunch of consumer debt or consumer credit cards.
I don't know about you, but when early on in the business, I struggled because most of the time when we were meeting with clients, it was not fun.
Yeah.
They were in a bad mood. I was nervous. I wanted to make them feel better. And I think what that caused me to do a lot of times was kind of sugarcoat things and say, oh, no, you're going to be fine. Yeah, we'll fix things for you. And I've learned over the years to be, I don't know if blunt is the word, but honest and realistic, right?
Yeah, black and white.
Up front. And hey, look, we have an issue. Let's deal with it. And then we don't have to worry about it anymore. So again, what we find is people, for a couple of reasons, people don't plan. But one is that it's just not fun. There's so much crap, BS information out there. You're barraged every day on Instagram or the social medias about what you should be doing for this, or we see it all the time. These hawkers online that say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, or don't do this and don't do that. Well, it's confusing and people don't want to address it. So they stick their head in the sand and they say, hey, I'll just hope things work out, right? And as we all know, hope is not a plan.
Yeah.
So that's one reason, right? There's just too much information, hard to figure out. Another reason is related to how we grow up. I mean, did your parents ever talk to you about money and finances?
I feel like my dad did a little bit, but growing up, my dad, I think like the 401k had just started.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody knew. And everyone was like, my dad was just like, you just need to find a job that has a 401k.
Right, that'll save you.
Like, I didn't know. I was just like, all right, 401k. And then if I went to a job interview and they're like, you get benefits, you get a 401k. I'm like, oh, this is exactly what my dad was talking about. And he didn't really, to be honest with you, I don't think he knew either. I think he was just what he was told, I feel like.
Well, that's better than just not talking at all. And that's how I grew up was, finances was a taboo subject. Nobody talked about finances. I never knew what my father even earned my whole life. I never knew what his salary was.
I was like, let me get this straight. He didn't really we didn't talk about finances. We never sat down at the kitchen table and he talked about what their mortgage was and the struggles that they had. Like, you see all those memes online of like the kids playing Guitar Hero in 2008 and they're upstairs. Like that was me and my parents were dealing with a financial crisis. Like I had no idea what was going on. It definitely wasn't something like topic of conversation, but none of this stuff is taught. And it's just kind of, you just get delivered it and you're like, all right, I got to overcome this in some fashion.
So I think that's another reason why the people don't address their financial problems, and it kind of builds up. It's kind of this little problem inside of you, and it's there. I mean, even if you're okay, even if you have good income and you're paying your bills and you're putting money in a 401k like you talked about, there's still that worry I find with most people that, am I doing it right? Am I missing something? Am I going to be okay? Because they don't take the time to sit down and do their projections and figure out, what am I on track for? Whether it's, am I putting enough into my college savings to have enough? Am I doing enough on retirement side? What are the taxes going to be when I retire? So,
and there's the flip side of that is people bury their head in the sand because they I do have a 401k. I'm good. And they're not meeting the expectation of how much money they should be putting in, not to actually try and duplicate their income with the amount of incomes in there. How much is enough for me to retire and receive the same income that I was receiving when I was working? Yeah. I meet with people all the time and they don't understand how the match works inside of their 401k.
Yeah. There's a psychological term for that. I forget what it is, but it's when you do something. Like, for example, have you ever bought a book that was on a topic that you wanted to learn about?
Yeah.
But just never read it?
Yeah.
Of course, everybody has. And I forget the term again, but that's a psychological thing. You buy the book and you feel like you've done something. You feel like, okay, I did, so you put aside and now it's out of your mind temporarily. Mm-hmm. It hasn't left. It's still back there, but you feel like, okay, I did something. Yeah. And that's the same thing that happens with finances. And I deal with that all the time in the college planning space where parents set up a college savings plan, whether it's a 529 or something else, and they start putting maybe $50 a month in or birthday money in. They feel like, oh yeah, we have a plan. We're good. And they never address it again. And 2 years before tuition bills show up, they break open the statement and realize it's going to pay for, books.
Yeah, pull it out of the filing cabinet like, here's the last statement. There's enough money in here.
Yeah, so it's an ongoing thing. When I say, hey, take care of the problem and the worry's gone, it doesn't mean that you do it once and it's over. It is an ongoing process. But again, it's something that, if left unaddressed, really impacts your quality of life. And even if it's subconsciously. But those are the main reasons, right? There's too much information out there. People can't make a decision. They get that analysis paralysis, right? Mm-hmm. No one ever talked about money, right? Again, my parents never talked to me about money. Their parents never talked to them about money. So each generation is just supposed to figure it out as they go, and they make mistakes. And sometimes that's good. You want to learn on your own. But with finances, if you're making mistakes early in life, it has a compounding effect, right?
Yeah.
So those are two main reasons.
I think, and there's another one too. It's what you guys are seeing now is there's so much technology out there, and this isn't throwing shade at what we're doing now, but like we're putting out content for you guys to understand this. And I feel both Chris and I take a non-biased approach to this, and we're very transparent, and we want to explain to you the pros and cons of every type of vehicle or thing out there. But I mean, I could sit there all day and scroll on whether it's Instagram, social media, TikTok, Facebook, Reels, and there's one person saying one thing, and then the next reel I switch to, it's them contradicting each other.
Yeah.
And now you have that paralysis situation where
who's right?
Yeah. What am I supposed to do, and who do I trust? And let me ChatGPT this, or new technology.
We were just talking about ChatGPT. That's like maybe a third reason is that there's so much uncertainty going forward. Life has accelerated at a massive pace in the last 10 years, and it's just going to get faster. And now nobody knows what 5, 10, 20 years down the road is going to look like. So again, it becomes harder to plan. Years ago, like we used the 401k again. Years ago, hey, put your money in a 401k. When you retire at 65, you'll have this much money, and then you retire, and everything. The world will be the same. Nobody knows what the world's going to look like 5 years from now.
No idea.
So that also creates that stick the head in the sand mentality, but it doesn't get rid of the problem. So planning is what am I trying to say? Planning is an organic thing, a living process. So it's not about putting your plan together and then you're good to go. It's building it into your lifestyle so that you can adjust and be flexible and adapt to the changes. Again, that's kind of vague, but we're going to get more into the details as the podcast goes along.
Yeah. It constantly needs to be manicured in some fashion, always, and things change constantly, even in the healthy world. Like, I don't know how many times people told me, like, this was very good for you, and then later on, it's not good for you. Things change so often that you just need to constantly be touching on this, and you need someone to help you do this type of stuff that's involved in this on a day-to-day basis to really point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm old enough to know now that, I think butter was bad for you, then it was good for you, then it was bad for you, and now I think it's good again.
Good for you, yeah.
If you live long enough, you realize nobody knows what's going on.
Nobody has any clue.
So again, that's why you need to adapt, be adaptable, be flexible, but you need to address things so that it's not a problem in the back of your mind. And I say that because that's how I view it. Like we both have these same issues in our life, even though we do this for a living, we do our planning. There's other issues in life beyond finances that if not addressed, you feel it. I literally physically feel it sometimes in the back of my head when you have that stress, right? When you go to bed at night, you just can't sleep. Well, that's what we look to alleviate for people is, hey, if you've got an issue that you're not sure of, let's work it out. Let's figure it out for you so that you can live without that in the back of your head. Because when you don't have that, now you start to live your life in a different way, right? More intentional. Right? You get up every day and you have an idea of what I want to do instead of just, hey, let me put out fires or let me just get through the day. Now you're living a more authentic life. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Living worry-free, what does that really look like? Living life on your own terms, right? Instead of living life based on trying to skirt around a problem. What are we talking about there, Keith? Kind of define that for me.
Yeah, I think having structure is 100% important in any type of plan that you put forward, right? Obviously you have your theoretical piggy bank at home, and every time you have a little loose change, you're putting a couple cents in there and you're like, oh yeah, it's growing. But having some sort of structure of understanding exactly what's ahead and how to plan efficiently so we can reach that obvious goal. Retirement's a long-term goal and a short-term goal. So your retirement and your planning is going to change because I'm in my 30s and, I plan on having children. My short-term goal is having enough funds to be able to raise a family and have them grow up in a home. Yeah. But 20 years from now...
How many kids?
Yeah. I don't know. Originally it started at 6 and then it slowly, progressed a little bit down. But yeah, I think people just are short-sighted rather than long-sighted, and it's okay to be short-sighted. one-sided, but I think structure is the most important thing to be worry-free. So this way, when you hit that theoretical retirement goal, you're like, I put this stuff in place so long ago that I know that it's working for me.
Yeah.
But it needs to be revisited every so often to make sure that it's meeting the expectation that you have.
Yeah. Well, you said short-sighted. People are short-sighted. I think that's a function of today's world too, that we're kind of in an attention span deficit everywhere. So we're just dealing with life as it comes, as opposed to intentionally planning out life.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about intentionally planning your life, talk about what that planning looks like. Like what we talk, hey, put money in retirement so that you're good for retirement. But what does retirement look like, right? Do you have that talk with your clients as far as not just when are you going to retire, but what are you planning to do?
Yeah, and you always ask as we do a traditional, we refer to as discovery or fact find, trying to understand the client and their needs. It's, again, going back to that doctor analogy. Doctor comes in, he doesn't look at you and say, oh yeah, I know exactly the fix that you're going to need. He asks you questions. Well, how does that feel? Does it feel like an elephant's pressed down in your chest? Do you feel like it's constantly beating? Are you waking up in the night? He's asking you questions to understand exactly what your goals are. But if you ask somebody like, hey, when do you want to retire? The answer is always, tomorrow. That's usually what everyone says.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. But I think asking them to almost, paint you this storyboard of what the retirement looks like, because someone may want to visit Italy and travel the world and be able to go on a cruise 2 weeks out of the year, or they have grandchildren that live in California and grandchildren that live in Maine, but I live in Texas. And
I had a client once actually say something that really hit home with me. When I was talking to them about that, they said they already had grandchildren. They were just about to retire. I asked them about what does retirement look like for you? What do you want? They said, well, I'd rather go visit my grandkids as opposed to sending them cards on the holidays. And I said, wow, that's big, right? So keeping in touch with your grandkids through cards. Nowadays it's through FaceTiming and stuff. But they wanted to be present with their grandkids, and that was going to cost more money because their kids had spread out across the country. So that was important to them, right? Travel, not just for just leisure and seeing the world. It was more just to be able to be with their family on the holidays in different parts of the country. So that's a specific goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, it's kind of like loop that into the whole protection side of things and seeing those ulterior goals of what I'm trying to do eventually. What if something happens or interrupts that from happening at some point in time? And that's why we always talk about how important insurance is in most cases. I don't want to say, every single plan involves insurance, but at the same time, if you kind of put people in a situation and make them understand exactly, well, what's the plan if that happens? People kind of think about it.
Well, let's be blunt about it. That's what we do. That's how we use insurance as a tool, among other financial vehicles. But the focus of this podcast is on how to protect the downside, right? And that's not just protecting the downside in the markets, which you can do, but and we do with our clients, but it's protecting the downside of life, meaning if you put something on a paper that says, hey, if I save this much money over the next 20 years, 25 years, here's how much I'm going to have, and that's how much income it'll produce, that's great. But what if you can't save that much over that 20 years because A, B, or C happens, right? Either you're out of a job because of a disability, or God forbid you're gone. Does the family still live the life you had planned, right? So I think a lot of people think about insurance planning as, all right, well, if I'm gone, I got to have the mortgage paid off for the family so they can stay in the house. And maybe I have to have some money so that my kids can go to college. But they don't think of it in terms of, all right, well, those are the basics. But if I were to ask you today what you want your life to be with you and Molly, and if you have kids, what does it look like? You're out of the picture. Does that view of life for Molly and the kids change? Is it different?
No, it shouldn't. Right. I mean, I want them to continue the same goal,
Yeah, so most people think of planning as, well, I just got to plan for the worst case. And if I just take care of the basics, that's my job. But I think of it in terms of, well, I'm planning my life. I'm planning my family's life. And if I'm not there, that doesn't mean that I don't want that to still happen for them. So I guess where I'm going with this is most people don't think in terms of their real value to the family. There's a concept that we talk about, human life value, right? And that just means, well, what is the financial value of you to the family, to the kids, to the world? And that's how we structure insurance policies for people. We'll get more into specifics about how to do that, but you just reminded me of that when you started talking about putting something on paper and planning and planning for the downsides. But yeah, things happen, life happens, and plans almost never go according to the original plan, right?
Yeah.
What's the famous quote by Mike Tyson? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, or something.
Is that really a quote?
Someone said, well, what do you think? Someone was interviewing him pre-fight, and they said, well, I forget who he was fighting, but they said, well, his plan is to do this in the fight with you. And Mike Tyson kind of laughed it off and said, yeah, well, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah. Well,
and that's exactly true.
This is the first time I'm hearing this quote. I kind of like it. I mean, it's true. It's just like you don't actually get that experience until it actually happens to you, and then that's where those stories that we have that we've had with individual clients that experienced that.
Yeah,
they went into it with the plan. Like Mike Tyson's fighter went into it. Yeah, he's gonna get tired. He's gonna do this. I'm gonna hook him with this, and then they get punched in the face. You're like, whoa! Like I need to make an adjustment, or what am I supposed to do now? Like I can't do what I'm supposed to do, and I need to make a change.
Yeah. So usually it didn't matter with Mike Tyson. Once he got punched in the face,
it might have been over.
But let's talk about what are the downsides that cause people to worry and maybe not live a life as fully as they could because they're worried. So obviously there's a premature death, right? Mm-hmm. There's market gyrations, right? What if the markets don't cooperate with our plans? Because everybody uses an average rate of return to project out how they'll be, but the world doesn't work that way, right? We don't. If you say, hey, I'm projecting with a 6% average return, you're not going to get 6% every year. And it matters when those returns come. If those big loss years come right before retirement, that's going to change your plans, right?
Yeah.
So, or right before you have to pay for college. And you know this, when I work with clients on the college planning side, I put what I call a blueprint together. And that's to keep them on track, but also it accounts for those things, right? We need to protect the downside in the markets because we know when the money's going to be needed. So how do we protect it, but still grow it? So we know that when the first tuition bill shows up, half of my balance hasn't evaporated in a market downturn.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But then there's, all right, well, what if I'm not able to save the money every year that I'm planning to send my kids to college with because I'm not here?
Yeah.
All right. So we plan for all these unexpecteds. And then again, going back to our main theme, I feel like that allows people to focus more on their life as opposed to the worry about
and doing the things they love and want to do, and the traveling and the stuff that you get out of life and enjoy doing, like what makes you wake up every single day.
Yeah.
But the things that we're talking about, the worry-free life, I think the biggest one is health. And I feel like I didn't really experience that because, for the viewers that are, entering their 30s, when you're in your 20s, you can do whatever you want.
You're invincible, right?
Yeah, I could have went on a bender all night at 3 a.m. and I had to be up at 7 a.m. and I woke up and I was like, let's go, I'm ready to go.
It'll catch up to you, trust me.
Well, it has, and it's like a lot more things kind of come into perspective. And then, I feel like my parents now, they're into their 60s now, and like my dad's, I go to his house and they got a blood pressure cuff in the middle of the coffee table. I'm like, what are you doing? And then they're like, oh yeah, it's always good to kind of make sure. And then I'm like,
we've got one of those in my house.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. But that's the reality of life is you brought up health. Health is another downside, right? If you're not healthy, you're not able to maybe earn the money you wanted to save. Mm-hmm. So that's an issue. You want to have plans in place to take care of those things if something goes wrong. And that's more on the side of maybe disability insurance, obviously health insurance. There are critical illness features that you can put into your life insurance policies that will take care of things like that. So again, not fun planning because it's stuff you don't want to have happen. But again, if you take care of it, you're not bogged down by it. It's not an anchor holding you down from enjoying life.
Yeah.
I think it's not really a downside, but you brought it up before we started recording, is something called Parkinson's law. I wouldn't say it's a downside that needs protection against. I think it's kind of a condition of life that you need to be aware of. And just for our listeners, Parkinson's law is kind of an economic theory. And the theory goes in very basic terms, it's your expenses will always expand to meet available income. In other words, you make more money, you will find ways to spend it.
Yeah.
Now, the Parkinson's law, if you look it up, it wasn't originally used in that way. It was more about how people use time. It was a study done years ago about how workers, factory workers or government workers, use their time allotted to finish a task. And they found that no matter how much time you gave a worker to finish a task, they used all of it. Right? And it's just human nature. Same thing. No matter how much income you give to somebody, they will find a way to spend all of it.
It's called procrastination.
Well, I don't know if procrastination is the right. Procrastinating on planning.
Yeah.
But no, I know what you're saying on the time side.
Yeah, the time side. Like the one guy's like, they gave me 2 weeks to finish this. I got time, and then I'll handle it right before it happens.
Well, when you were in school and you had a project due, a report due, when did you complete it?
Yeah, I mean,
90% of it was done the night before. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So that's the and it's the same thing with
going to your parents' bedroom the night before that you need a three what is those things called?
The trifold.
The trifold.
Yeah. With the glue and the glitter and all that crap. Yeah. So it's just human nature, and the same thing with money, right? If we don't plan money, I look at money as or cash flow as almost like a river flowing through your household, right? And 90% of that river is just going to flow right through your house out the other end in lifestyle spending. Our job is to help people set up diverters on that river of cash and divert some of that as it's flowing through into containers that we can use for later on, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's college, retirement, whatever it is. And if you're aware of how much is flowing through, you're going to be, and you set up these diverters and know how much you need to be diverting, you're more likely to stick to it as opposed to, hey, money's flowing through. Let's see what happens at the end of the month. If there's any water still laying around, that's what we'll gather, right?
Yeah.
But it's if you don't pay attention to it, money will find a way, like water, it will go the path of least resistance and find its way out of your life. So that's a lot of the planning we do with clients. It's not a downside of life. I think it's just a condition of life that you have to be aware of. And if you put it on paper, map it out and say, all right, we're going to divert this much cash flow. We're going to divert this much cash flow over here and keep doing that as you go along so that, all right, well, maybe we don't have that money right now to do what we want to do, but in 3 years, we're going to have money because this debt will be paid off or something else will happen. Or the kids will be out of daycare. All right, well, let's map it out and earmark that money in the future for a plan so that when we get there, we know what to do. Otherwise, if you don't have a plan, what's going to happen to that car payment once the car is paid off?
I'm going to go spend it on either another car or another tool that I don't need.
It's going to evaporate into spending, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should be super forensic about this and you got to watch every dollar. Some people do, but I don't even do that. This is the work I'm in. But I think that it's helpful to pay attention and say, all right, well, once some cash flow is freed up, whether it's from an increase in income, a debt paid off, how much of that cash flow do I want to let continue to go out to lifestyle, right? Because that's why we're here. We want to live. So it's not like if $500 is freed up from a debt paid off, maybe I want to take half of that and I'm going to divert that into savings. I'm going to add the other half to lifestyle spending.
Yeah, and continue to let that water flow and let it go to the path
of least resistance.
Path of least resistance.
That's a
tongue twister for sure. But yeah, I think that's the other thing too. And that's why meeting and talking with individuals like us is important because throughout your career, people spend 10, 15, 20, 30, sometimes 40 years in the same job. And as their job progresses, they continue to make more income. So more water's flowing.
Yeah.
And that Parkinson's law is the income goes up and you're like, all right, driving that Honda, now I want to get the Mercedes.
Yeah.
And look, we don't say that.
No offense to Honda.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's a great car. It was my first car.
Yeah, great cars. Great vehicles. They get you from A to B. But, people want to live in some sort of luxury and that's okay. Yeah. But let's do it the right way. Let's do it with a plan.
Again,
structure.
that's about worry-free living, right? If I have a plan and I know exactly how much I'm going to be saving for different reasons, when the time comes that money becomes available and I want to spend on luxury items or leisure items, pleasure items, I don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
Right. How many times have you been you've been at the store and you wanted to buy something, but you feel guilty because you know you're not doing the right thing on the saving side of things, right? But you buy it anyway because we're just surrounded by marketing efforts everywhere, and the world has got us kind of in this marketing vortex. Everywhere we go, we're pitched to. And we want to buy something, but you feel guilty afterwards, right? It's that regret because you're not really doing what you should be doing on the long-term side. So if you take care of that, if you put a plan in place and you're doing the right things with money, then when there is surplus money and you want to just blow it on something or spend it on something, I shouldn't say blow it, because that's really the point, is spending it on the things you really want to spend it on, then you don't have to feel guilty about it.
But
you can enjoy it.
Structure, because we're going to meet those people that do the path of least resistance with their water scenario. We meet them in 25 years and they're like, what do I do? And I tell them we have to continue to work longer, because we didn't put the necessary plans in place to make sure that they can live that worry-free lifestyle and meet the goals that they want to hit eventually, and what they want to do in retirement.
I sat down with a client this week, single mom, widowed a mom, and she has some money, but she came to us from another advisor, and she came and said, I asked her what kind of planning they do. And she says, well, my advisor says I've got to change my lifestyle. I got to stop spending because the money's going to run out. And she says, I have a pit in my stomach about that, because I'm the only income in the family. I have two boys. Now they're getting older, so she has a little bit of room there where they can start being self-sufficient. But she's panicked that the plan from her advisor is, well, you've got to stop spending. That's not a fun plan, right?
No.
So instead of trying to plan out the future and know that, hey, I'm going to have money for this, this, and this, now she's gotten to a point where she's trying to eliminate things from her life. She's not adding things like travel and hobbies. She's subtracting things because she's gotten to a point where they didn't do any planning. And that's a special circumstance because the husband passed away and they weren't fully prepared for it, but still, the idea is to get to a point where the planning should be fun. You're planning on how you're going to add and enrich your life down the road, not, hey, what am I going to subtract later on because I don't have enough money? And we all know people. I mean, I know people, especially here in New Jersey, North Jersey, where spending is just insane.
Yeah,
I know people that just live life like there's no tomorrow, and who knows, maybe they're right. What's tomorrow hold? But again, I know in the back of their minds, because I talk to them, they're close friends, and there's a worry there, and you can tell, right? But they live like no tomorrow, spend, and that's Parkinson's law. Right?
Yeah. I think that's like a perfect segment to kind of like wrap all this up too, is because in that client's perspective, the focus on life, right? Let's kind of break that down. They didn't focus on the life, like the insurance model, right?
Yeah.
Now the husband passed away or the spouse passed away in any situation. And now her focus is no longer on her life. It's focusing on how she's going to be able to live
it's survival
mode, rather than focusing on the enjoyment that she'll have.
Yeah.
And that's what, the viewers and the listeners can expect from this is real life stories, real situations, how to be efficient, and just
living life.
Yeah, focusing on life. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Well, there you go. So that's the point of it all, is to be able to focus on living your life, not necessarily the finances, which is what we do, but addressing those issues will let you focus on life.